Okay, this is a quick video for the Insurance Agency Owners Alliance that I am part of online. I get a lot of questions about E&O, so here's some quick tips that you guys can check when your E&O renews that you should be looking for as an agency owner. First one, really obvious, claims made and reported. Are you in a claims policy? Of course you are. It's important though that there's other language. I'm going to include the language that is in my policy to kind of show you what that could look like. Claims made and reported generally means obviously the claim has to be made and reported in the policy term. You do want them to at least say in any subsequent policy extended reporting period or renewal policy. They have different policy numbers. So we don't want to get caught in some technicality like that for claims made and reported. Defense inside the limit. This is an obvious one, right? Before you go search your policy for the words defense inside or outside the limit, it's probably going to show up in the form of words that say claims expenses erode the limit or are outside the limit or will not erode the limit. So it's very important to have a defense outside for both the limits issue, you know, how much money we have to play with, but also imagine your counsel litigating a case and you have to make sure we have enough to pay the counsel all the way through the case and also settle this loss, right? So defense outside the limits is a given. Make sure you ask for it. It is not something that they generally go, yeah, this is defense outside. Ask for it each and every time, okay? An exclusion for company insolvency. This is also very important, right? We write with other carriers. We broker the business. We write with Travelers or Nationwide or anybody else. So very important that you understand the exclusion for company insolvency inside your policy. Mine is very specific to the rating. It says B+ or better, or of course is subject to the state guarantee fund, which would be our admitted carriers. So I have very clear lines. I like to know exactly what I'm writing. So make sure that you do look for those words, company insolvency, or a company that can no longer perform, things like that, so that you know if you could be on the hook for writing somebody that maybe even was well rated when you wrote them and is no longer well rated. That goes without saying, very, very important. Aggregate deductible. This is one people don't pay attention to. So, do you want an aggregate deductible? Yes, you do. Okay, it's generally 2 to 3 times your regular deductible. If you can imagine during a hurricane or a tornado or a major ice or storm event, you could have a lot of people on a loss, a lot of claimants. You could have 33 claimants on a loss. And if you can imagine that times $5,000 a claimant, even if they were all frivolous, you would still need to pay that. So the aggregate is very important. It is more expensive to get an aggregate, but I say always look for one, right? 5, 15, 5, 10, whatever you decide, your threshold is, but make sure there's an aggregate on the policy. That will help, okay? Coverage for punitive. This also is very important. Look for the word punitive. It's not going to be called anything else in your policy. If it excludes coverage for punitive, that's a problem. And again, ask for inclusion of coverage for punitive. It will always have the wording that says we're allowed by state law, right? Just like our waivers of subrogation. Same thing, right? We'll always have that. That's fine. But we want to make sure that if a settlement is, this much for the actual home being uninsured, but then this much for punitive, that too is covered in the loss settlement, right? With defense outside, of course. So we want to make sure that is all covered. So punitive included. First dollar defense, again, you can all ask for this. This is an easy one. This means company comes in and defends us first dollar. So this we want, first dollar defense. Generally a very inexpensive endorsement to add, maybe a couple $100 a year. And it means that they don't have to retain or we don't have to pay for those services first to eat up that deductible or retention before the company comes in, right? Generally, you will see this right on the deck page. And also it means that you're not going to pay your deductible until they pay out a settlement, right? So it's way down the road. You have time to plan, run your business, make the loss, forget about it. Absolute pollution and mold exclusions. This sounds so weird, right? I'm an insurance agent, but this also can and does apply to mold and pollution inside policies. So please make sure there are no exclusions for pollution or mold in your errors and omissions policy. They kind of sneak that in there sometimes. We want to make sure that a claim that maybe has 5 different components of it that could include mold in a home, could include pollution by a commercial contractor is also covered, okay? So make sure there's no exclusions for that. Consent to settle, this is the biggest one. It's called the hammer clause or the selling your reputation clause, right? This is the point at which the company can settle on your behalf. Every single policy has the consent to settle provision. If it's a really inexpensive policy, you have no consent. You cannot reasonably withhold consent, and they have all the power. And if they offer settlement, let's say they offer $100,000 on a case, and you don't take it, you're on your own. That's a full hammer. That's what they call a full hammer. And in that case, they may even have provisions to completely withdraw. They don't have to turn over accounts. I mean, there's just all kinds of stuff. You need to read the policy language. So what I tell insurance agents is make sure you buy down the hammer. I'm gonna post in this video my hammer. I have an 80% hammer, which means that company comes in, offers $100,000. I say, no way. I didn't do anything wrong here. I do not accept that. This is my reputation. This is my community. No way. I go on, okay? My policy specifically will cover 80% of any settlement, including defense, right? After that settlement point. So they're gonna pay 100% up to that 100,000. After that 100,000, they are gonna pay 80 if I lose, right? So, and of defense cost. So after that point, so I have the chance to go, you know what, we're so close, we're going to trial, we've already been through mediation or arbitration, not come to any settlement, and this is, I have that choice, right? But the most I can be on the hook for is 20%. And remember, I'm defense outside. So, so all of these things come into play and they work with one another. It's very important to get these. Buy down your hammer. The best you can probably get is a 90-10. You must know policies give you full control of the policy that I've ever seen and say, you know what, just take it. They've got to have some skin in the game. 90-10 is the best. I'm at an 80-20. And last, EPLI. I have EPLI in my policy. That's employment practices liability insurance. Often these losses overlap one another. Sounds crazy. So if you can get E&O on your policy, please do so. I recommend doing so. I do it on mine. And it will basically just be a secondary policy form added to your E&O. If you have questions on cyber or anything else, quick note, I recommend cyber outside of this. They're much more robust. But I will post this notes limit so you guys understand, or notes from my policy on this, so you guys understand what's on my policy. I tried to make this as quick as possible. I hope this helps. Make sure you ask for these things from your agent. Thanks.